So everybody gets to throw stones at Jim, but he just smiles and he's very, very, very nice to everybody. Okay, so this smiles and he's very, very, very nice to everybody. Okay, that's a bad echo. Okay, so this smiles and he's very, very, very nice to everybody. Okay, that's a bad echo. Okay, so this.
You can say that again.
Okay, since not everybody is here, maybe we can begin with the last item, which is new for most people. Donald and I have started experimenting with a consensus-seeking pre-voting system. Consensus discussion before voting is thought to be very important in getting to votes that are meaningful. So Donald and I and perhaps some other people are trying to bring in a system that will allow more of that kind of discussion. We already have it on GitHub, but this is perhaps a more easy to use system where we can get more participants.
Please, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can you elaborate more on how this voting system, how it's going to work? Can you elaborate a little bit more to make it clear?
It'll be a system where people somebody makes a proposal. In the beginning of the trial, I'll probably limit the people that can make a proposal. And then everybody is able to express opinions about the proposal and also to move a slider to indicate how they feel yes or no about that proposal. So it's not exactly a replacement of a vote, but it's more of a discussion system so that people kind of understand where each other are coming from.
Why would you limit who could make a proposal?
In the beginning stages, it'll be limited, and I don't know what the proposal generation system is going to be. The reason for having fewer proposals is to focus discussions on particularly critical issues, but we can discuss about what the proposal, how one might become a proposer and so on. And by the way, that reflects also the trust metric. We have similar issues because not everybody in the trust metric is at the same level. And maybe that's a very good segue into David's discussion. David wanted to speak about issue 752, which he filed. How fair is the trust metric? So David, can I just give you the floor? Before I do that, I want to say when people are not speaking, they can turn off their video, but when they are speaking, please turn on your video if it's okay. And I'm going to be a little bit harsh in limiting time because I just want to we have a lot to get through and I want to get through it all during the meeting. David, are you ready to share your part of the meeting or this issue 752? David, you have to turn your microphone on.
I'm sorry about that. I didn't look at that. So, hello, everyone. Trick, I have been I've been a little
I'm sorry, David, I don't mean to interrupt you.
About it because lights.
David, I'm going to interrupt. Yes, I'm interrupting you because the connection is bad. So it's possible that maybe Valentine and Jason should turn off their video. David, I'd prefer to have you with your video if that works. let's try that. So everybody turn off their video except for David. Okay, David, go.
All right, like I said earlier, I feel it's quite unfair for just a few persons to be able to vote on issues that they didn't even participate in. For example, there were a lot of cases I stated in the issue I created that were pointing out to issues where someone didn't participate in that the main actor of the issue is not getting any significant reward. I believe that when it comes to voting, not just in the bounty program, but in anything at all, whether in politics, financially, that everyone should be given a right to protect its interest or to show how valuable their work is. Their votes may not carry the highest weight, but at least their vote should weigh something. Their vote should count. They should be able to tell how valuable their work is. So then also, I talked about there not being a consensus concerning slashing. I don't believe if a person thinks that another person's reward for the whole month. I think if someone else is thinking your work is not good enough, it should only be restricted to that particular issue, and it shouldn't affect the person's reward in every other issue. And that was why I brought out some cases where this has been discussed. Or if at all we're going to reach out any decision in the trust metric or whatever, I believe there should be a consensus. A greater number of the bounty of RAM members should accept or should give their consent to whatever policy we're using, because as it is now, not a lot of persons are even aware of how the trust metric work. For example, there are some persons that have been certified by other certified members, but yet their name doesn't reflect in the trust metric. And apart from Dan Connolly, I don't think there is anyone else who can explain how the trust metric really works. And that is not so good. I think every member has a right to know exactly how the trust metric work, how the trust ratings work, and
David?
how their names can get into trust rating. Yeah.
I'm just especially ready for the meeting. I hope we can like this before. That's everybody feels that. It's just here. Wait till they say, you should say they don't have.
Are you still on? Are you guys still on?
Okay, David.
After now.
So, are there any questions, or does someone else have something to say?
David, for one thing, I think we should talk about one thing at a time. But you mentioned that there's few people that can explain how the trust metric works. And have you seen the wiki page on it?
Yes, I've gone through that wiki page severally. I've read also the codes that is on Don Connolly's GitHub repo. I don't think it explains clearly how the trust rating works. For example, how do we know the weights that are required for someone's name to get into the trust rating? The reason I'm saying this is because if you study the certifications on the certifications page in the rewards app, you will discover that there are persons that they've been certified by other certified members, but their name doesn't show. And I believe that is because the weight of the person who certified them doesn't carry as much weight as to...
David, I have an answer to that. Maybe I can clarify some things. Okay, so you are right about that, but in the past few days, there was a limit on the number of the trusted or certified people. And the limit now is set by Dan Connolly, and he's in talks with several people in order to decide what the limit should be, or if there should be a limit at all.
Okay. Can I respond to that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Personally, I feel there shouldn't be a limit. Now,
I agree with you.
let me explain what I. Okay. The reason I'm saying there shouldn't be a limit is because I believe the trust rating was built because of trust. And it's possible that we could get to a point where every member becomes trusted. And so there shouldn't be a limit because it is possible that over time, everyone can become trusted. Because for example, trust has to do with how much we relate with ourselves, and how much we know ourselves outside GitHub. That is how much we communicate with ourselves on other chat platforms personally, and that is where trust is built. So, for example, there are people I'm more in contact with than others, and that is because there are some persons that do not really reply their messages, probably because they are busy, and so it is because and that has resulted as it is not really easy to build trust with such a person because trust is built in private or personally when we get to interact with ourselves, such as this video meeting and other ways we could interact with ourselves, such as Discord and other channels we have. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, but Dan Connolly did that for, I think it's not permanent. I mean, he's in talks with people and he doesn't want to take a decision in a centralized way. Now, I shouldn't talk about him if he's not here, but I think that his point of view. And on the other subject that you said on bringing the community together and getting to know each other in order for each other to trust each other in the trust metric system, I had a proposal on that, on building a community forum and start discussing several or various things, not particularly on Rchain, but just to get to know each other.
Is there anyone on this call that would argue that there should be a limit on the number of trusted members that we have?
David, you are hosting this part of the meeting. Call on whoever you think is appropriate, please.
All right. I just saw someone's comment. You want to say something, Gary?
Yes. I feel.
Gary, you want to say something?
Yes. Can you hear me? I feel that there should be a limit. I'm guessing that the limit is too low right now. Also, I noticed Dan Connolly was revoking his votes earlier this morning for a few members who had not been active and had not been using their vote. And so what this will do, in my understanding, is promote people who may have fallen out of the pool of voting candidates. But people should be voting whether they, even if they're observers, just to express so we know what they're interested in and to encourage other members. But yes, I think there should be a limit. It's probably too low now, but I think the limit plays an important part into the algorithm of this constraint limited flow network idea that we're trying to build.
Can I add something?
Valentine, go on.
Okay, I was thinking that since they said that the trust metric system is more like experimental than it stands to hold, then I feel that it is to have a limit, then it should be for this experimental period. If it comes to stays, then the limit should be removed entirely because over time, people they might have more trusted members than the limit actually that limits them to hold. So I feel that if it's an experimental stuff, then for now, if it's to have a limit, it should be more of an experimental stuff for now than to stay for a longer period of time. That's my view. But personally, I don't feel that there should be a limit to the amount of trusted members. That's my personal view.
Okay. Can I ask a question? Now, does anyone apart from Dan Connolly understand the algorithm of the trust metric? What I mean is, can someone explain how weighting works in the trust metric? How many weights is required for someone's name to appear in the trust rating?
Is there any part of that that's not like public? Is that hidden? Or is it not open source?
It is open source, and well-vetted trust metric mechanism. That's Dan explained pretty well, I thought, in the comment. It's not something that is simple, but it's something that has been well considered, well designed, and well thought out in terms of the algorithm.
Okay, Alan is raising his hand. He wants to speak.
I'm sorry?
Alan raises his hand. He wants to speak.
Jim, why don't you finish what you're saying and then I'll speak.
Yeah, in terms of the limits on who on trusted people, I still don't get the justification for that. Gary said he's in favor of a limit. I don't understand why, but if somebody can come up with a reason, that would be a good thing. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I have people asking me to, weigh in on their budgets or rewards when the team members haven't voted themselves, and I'm helpless. Okay, I mean, somebody says this should be, I can look at the discussion and I can see what's done, but without the votes of the actual team members being there, even if they don't count, it tells me something about it, because I have a feeling about many of the people who participated, and I have my own trust, independent of the trust metric credit, as to what's believable and not believable, and if as long as the evidence is there that the work was done and the team itself has weighed in on what they believe is fair, I can make a judgment. Otherwise, I can't. So please, whether or not your vote counts, please vote.
Should we just talk about one thing at a time?
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. There's like 4 conversations happening. I think we should talk about
can I say something in response to what Jim Scarver just said?
Sure. I think the conversation should be about, for now, what was it? Whether people can explain how the trust metric works.
Okay, so trench float, do you have any idea as to how the weighting works? I know how the trust rating works, but I mean the weighting of the votes now. For example, from the seeds votes count explicitly. For instance, there are some persons that were only certified by the seeds and their votes count, while there are some other persons that have been certified by 3 to 4 persons, and yet they are not yet, and they don't yet appear in the trust rating. So can someone explain that?
Well, I was actually confused as to why mine wasn't showing up, but then Dan told me that the ratings are updated in batch. So you have to actually go into the certain part of the Bounty app and hit the update from GitHub button, or the update trust ratings button or something. To answer your question, though, I don't know how it works, and I'm not a developer, so I choose to have faith in other people that, since it's open source, that it's okay.
David,
are you done speaking?
Yes.
Okay. Concerning what Jim Scarver said, I think it's quite discouraging for people to vote when they know their vote doesn't count, it doesn't really help because they just feel there is no point voting. So when their vote doesn't count or the vote rate is 0, a lot of persons will not vote. And so you can't really tell who and who participated and what they think about their work.
Well, David, what Jim was saying was that if you're just an observer and you vote, then that's a clue to maybe the masters as to how they should vote. If you're going to campaign for votes, then you should tell them how you think they should vote. So that's the point of voting if you're an observer.
Yeah.
Wait, can I say something?
And a person who's not trusted at the time when they vote can become trusted by the time the votes are closed. So, they, if they're not willing to vote themselves, it seems that they're not interested in getting a reward.
Can I ask something here?
All right, Valentine.
I want to ask, should as in the correct method of voting, should for example, I'm not in the trust metric. Should I scout for votes from those on the trust metric, or if I vote for myself and it doesn't count, how does that aid me in any way?
Okay, Alan, do you want to take the lead?
Val, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I said that currently, I'm not in the trust metric, and if should I scout for votes from those in the trust metric? Because James Carver just said that you should vote for yourself, and maybe later you could be in the trust metric. What if I vote myself and I'm not in the trust metric and I don't scout for votes? Would my vote still be invalid and not count at all? Isn't that still discouraging?
I think I can answer that question.
Go ahead.
Okay, David, may I speak? Okay, I'm going to go ahead. So there are several issues that are conflated here, and there are a bunch of questions.
Does anyone want to respond to that? Okay.
Alan, go ahead.
If people want my votes, they should vote. Okay, that's all.
Okay, so let me make several clarifications here. Number one, currently observers are not able to vote. I consider that to be a bug in the bounty system, in the voting system, in the trust metric system. And I have in the agenda notes labeled that something that Dan Connolly and I have been speaking about. So in my estimation, observers or people that are just coming into the system should actually begin with a small amount of vote. That brings us to the question of, should there be more trusted members and less trusted members? And the concept is that as people become more familiar with our cooperative and the needs of our cooperative, their trust ratings should go up. The truth is, we don't have a very good system for evaluating that right now. But as someone pointed out, it's an experimental system, and we're working on that. So I believe that everybody should have some vote. And I also believe that there should be high-ranked or people with high weights in the vote system who are able to override lower-rated people if they feel that's necessary. Jim says it's not likely to ever be necessary if people who are voting as observers or whatever their weight is. In most cases, people with higher weights will go along with the decisions of people with lower weights. There's one more thing that I'd like to address, which is David's initial comment about voting for the division of a budget between team members. It's my opinion that there should be overall voting on the amount of budget, the amount of reward, but the distribution between team members is something that should be left to the team. That will probably require placing these percentages right into the issue statement so that it's known what the likely distribution is going to be, and that can be done mechanically and read from the issue so that we can prepare invoices correctly. Okay, David, did that answer any of your questions? David?
Yes, it does. It answered the question of rewards vote. Yes, I said yes, it does. It answers the question of reward votes. But I also feel and believe that the team members should have a say as to the budget of the votes, because as to the budget of the issue of the work. Why? Because
yes, they do.
Value is relative.
Yes.
Yes, value is relative. How much you value something might not be the same way I value it. So the team members should have a say as to how much their work is worth. So that's my point. So
David, I have a question for you. Do you think it would be a fair system if team members can provide their input and their vote, but people with larger weights within the metric are able to override those? Does that sound like a system that's still fair?
Yes, yes, very much.
Okay, if we can all agree to that, I think that we can implement this system. So I'd like to, anybody that has opinions, please write them, please make them known. I'd like to get these things implemented and make sure they're agreeable before we do go ahead and implement them.
Personally, hello guys. I think that that yes, people with higher voting rates should be able to override those that put it for themselves to avoid some fraudulent transactions of people taking rewards and votes and are overpriced. So I think it's a plausible idea. Thank you.
David, you're still got the floor for this meeting. You can call on anybody or declare it done. It's 1:40 already, so if there are other issues, we should move on to them as well.
Okay, so does everyone agree to that? That everyone's vote should count, but people with higher weights should be able to override the votes.
Since Dan's not here, I'll speak for him a little bit. And he's very concerned that at this time, in order to answer the board's concern, he feels that it's safer for us to not give just anybody a reward. I mean, the ability to vote. My solution is that we should embrace the people that come on and take them in as apprentices, where the apprentice is responsible to some extent for the members, watching the members' votes and making sure they're not way out of line. In which case, everybody would be an apprentice and have some vote because they have been certified by some guide as an apprentice that they are somewhat responsible for. And they can, of course, revoke their certification if the person misbehaves.
Let me respond to that. I think, James Carver, I don't think the vote of the certification of just anyone would work. Why? Because there are only 3 persons that their certifications carry so much weight that just one certification from them could actually push someone into the trust rating. So if that could be lowered a little bit, that possibly the limit could be lowered to much higher than 46. I think that should work. Among my team members, I should be able to certify some trusted members among my team and say that these people are trusted and their votes should be able to influence rewards and budgets.
I absolutely agree. I mean, as far as I understood, if 3 apprentices approved a project, that was good enough. And I really think we should make that true. Otherwise, like you said, nobody's going to understand the bounty system.
Okay. Then I think we should move on to the next deliberation. Slashing. I think we should now discuss whether or not slashing should have effect on just the issue that was slashed, or whether it should completely remove someone's reward for the month. So anyone is free to chime in something.
I'll say something real quick. I think slashing, this might not be clear enough, but the idea is that you should only slash someone if they're really like misbehaving or being a bad actor. So just having work that's not good enough is not cause for slashing. And so in that sense, then yes, we should keep it as something that affects all of your rewards for that pay period.
I would say that if
can I say something to that? You know,
go ahead.
All right. So, you know, one of the issues, one of my concerns with slashing is that slashing there can never be, we don't have yet a metric for slashing. We don't have a metric for judging someone who is a bad actor, or for judging the extent to which someone is misbehaving. So sometimes 2 persons might be having personal issues, and it can result in one person slashing the other without having a particular objective reason as to why the person was slashed. So I believe that slashing, it's quite relative, or it's quite subjective and not objective. And so it should be limited to the issue that is just being under discussion or under debate.
I would say that, you know, slashing, if a few people can be God in the system and determine what doesn't get done, that we have a bad situation. And if we're going to slash somebody for all the work they've done because we disagree with one of their judgments as to the value of what they're producing, then the system is not fair, and we're actually not only not paying them for the work that's slashed, but we're also not paying for them for work that they did in good faith that was approved and by the process.
So Jim,
wrong. I think maybe there could be a case if you have a consensus among all of the community that this person is evil and bad, that we can just not pay them, but not a few people. Okay, if, you know, a few people could easily abuse that power, and I don't know. You know, I don't always agree with the slashing that people have done, and what can I do? I mean, it's slashed. I don't think it should be slashed, but that's, I don't really have a recourse, I don't think.
So Jim, do you think that the 10x weight is not enough, that we need more weight in order to slash someone?
Trench Blues, I think what Jim is saying is that it is quite unfair for some people disagreeing to a particular issue to affect a person's reward for the whole month. Now, one of the issues that brought that up was the issue on, I think, a work on translation, I think issue 681, where Don Connolly and some other people were having issues on the translation work. And Dan slashed the rewards for the participants in that issue, and it affected the rewards for other issues on that issue.
Dan, Kyle or Dan, if you're here, was that intentional? Is that the way that slashing was designed, or is that just a bug in its implementation since it's new software?
It is the way, yes, it is the way that slashing was designed to affect the entire pay period, and it was also designed only to be used on bad actors. And to answer your metrics point, David, the metric is if enough people agree on it to get 10x weight. So that's the obstacle in the way of slashing somebody right now. If you can get a master and a journeyer, for example, three, then.
All right, but trench floats, you know that a master and a journeyer, their weight equals 10. So that means that if a master and a journeyer should slash someone, the weight should be equal to 10 times. And yes, it should carry much weight. And that's just 2 persons. That's just 2 persons slashing a person. So I think that is too few. That is too few in number to decide whether or not someone should be rewarded for
what number do you propose?
Okay, I believe that I'm not very sure of a number yet, but I feel a much larger number should be proposed, or a much larger number should be implemented as regarding that.
Yeah, I would suggest that, it be double, that it be 20. Okay, because, I see communication problems causing the problem as much, I think that slashing all of these people is really punishing them to some extent for bad communication, because and I will shut up.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Guys guys and women, I have a procedural issue. I want to close this meeting at 10 minutes or 5 minutes before the hour. And so there's not much time. I would like to suggest that David and Trench float together, either through the agenda or through an issue, come up with some concrete proposals. Perhaps there are 2 definitions of slashing. One is just slashing the budget for a particular issue, but summarize the discussion here. And I would like to participate as well. I think that the weights on the trust metric system will be very different. Anyway, and
let's talk
also
about it in the Bounties Discord channel.
Okay, we can talk about it. Well, I don't like Bounties Discord because it doesn't leave a very good permanent record, but that might be a place to start. Dror also mentioned just now that this can be an economic thing involving tokens, involving staking, and so on. Dror, we're not there yet. We're still with the system that we have, but you can think about future systems that might be more refined. Does that make sense?
I just want to say that the reason you get slashed, I'm assuming the reason you get slashed for all your work, it's basically instead of you staking something, then you have something to lose. If you have nothing to lose, then you will be a bad actor. And if you win, you win. If you're not, you're not. That's the same thing with like proof of stake algorithm, I guess. Yeah.
That's an interesting observation. Are there more observations? We have another 4 or 5 minutes to go if people want to say something.
Should we talk about it later?
Are there other issues that people want to speak about before we end?
Okay, Michael Iser is here. So do you want to talk about?
I would like to introduce Michael Iser. Michael Iser, if you can turn your video on for a second. Michael Iser is going to be the lead guide for translation. Michael Iser, you want to say hi?
Hello. I just want to say that slashing should work only for report a certain issue, not to...
Michael, please talk a little bit louder.
Sorry. That I'm having problems with the microphone. That slashing should only work to report some specific issue, not to damage in any way the bounty they're going to receive. That could be something that Mark, they should to discuss it later with the rest of the community.
I would suggest that there are two different concepts. One is slashing where a stake or previous rewards are removed. And the other is the more normal thing. Michael Iser, as you suggested, the budget for an issue could be slashed if the issue is determined to have been falsified or for any other reason. So two different words we need.
Yeah, but as they said, three people can't really decide if somebody deserves to gain the bounty or not. So that's why I say slashing should only work to report, but like stand by for the bounty.
Are there other comments? Ian, you've just finished your lunch or whatever. Do you have some comments that you'd like to make?
Yeah. I just wanted to ask if anyone can please highlight any of the more exemplary work that's been done this week. So what have you guys yielded this week for the co-op? If you can just present a couple things.
Well, Ian, we're almost done with the retrospective boundary report. Just need like one or two sections written up, and then I'll add the finishing touches, and then we'll have it ready for the board.
Okay, no, I mean outputs, not just things for the bounty system or internal to the co-op. I mean things that will help grow the Rchain ecosystem, work that you've done to help with the marketing effort. I'm talking about outputs, not just things that are helping the bounty system itself.
Hello.
Okay,
hello,
Bloom, can I say something to that?
Okay.
Can I say something to that? I don't know if everyone is aware of the forthcoming first meetup we're having in Africa, Rchain meetup we're organizing. This week, we've had sessions with university students. We've met with a lot of students. We've proposed Rchain to them. It sounds so much like a very brilliant idea to them. They so much like the idea. We've showed them fundamentals of Rulang. And on Saturday, we're going to have a tutorial class on it. We're going to pitch Rchain, and we're going to teach people the fundamentals of Rulang, the fundamentals of aerospace, and every other technology or programming language Rchain is associated with.
Okay, David, thank you. I'd like to save time for Will and for Kit Blake. Kit, do you want to describe what you've done or the issue that you raised?
Well, it's not my issue. It's actually an issue from Lover 33, but he created a video and I watched it, and it's pretty good. So I think that was a positive thing to come out of this week. That's it.
Will, do you have something that you want to add?
Yes. I start issue about the promotion on in China, and a few days ago I talked to a person named Mr. Shan, and he has connection with the stream room in the Tsinghua University in China. This is one of the top university in China, and he could make a live stream. And he said he could make a live stream for Rchain, but he wants a reward about $3,000 for the live stream. It's about 400 to 700 per people to be online to watch the stream. And he also have a public account like Twitter, Weibo in China, and about 20,000 subscriber. And I'm not sure if it's a good deal to do this, and I'm keep connecting with him. That's what I've been working.
Okay, are there other people that want to address Ian's question?
I would say the Noob group has done a phenomenal job. Even the people that don't admit they're part of the Noob group, actually made an enhancement to the guides dashboard for reporting on issues. You know, that's an instantiation of using GraphQL, which we hope to employ as the front end to Rchain. So it's part of our front end development, as well as providing something useful to the community, which a number of people have used and liked. I think it's very helpful. If I can get out of screen share here.
Okay. We have just 1 or 2 minutes
one last
left.
thing. Can I say one last thing?
Yes.
Can I add one last thing?
Yes.
In response to Ian's, I have been able to successfully reach a partnership deal with a software company, and they're willing to provide us with their accelerator program. And they're willing to include Golang and Rchain development languages into their accelerator program. So it will be commencing very soon, probably by the end of the month to July. Yeah, and it will run for about 10 months. So we'll just keep following up with the progress development of Golang, the node release, and the flights to Mercury.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello? Hello?
Okay.
Hello?
Yes. Nonso?
Oh, I just want to add to what David said about the reach out we had in the university. That's the issue I worked on, issue 681. It was an awesome experience we encountered with students. And we were about completing the issue work after the first African Rchain meeting.
Yes, sir.
So the reaction we had from students, most of the students we encountered with were not familiar with Golang. So it's a good development to the work we're putting in place. Thanks.
Okay, if everybody is done, I'm going to close this meeting. We'll have another meeting next week, and we'll have lots more to discuss. Thanks, everybody, for participating.